thank you everyone for joining. Please post your questions as we go along. Our goal is to make sure that we make this as interactive as possible, and for you to share your questions with us so that way we could give it to our speakers that are here today. Part of that too, before we get started with the actual open innovation in banking, we're going to have a session where myself here, I'm Angel Lorente. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about FinTech Connector and what we've been up to over the course of the last couple of months. And then I'm going to turn it over to my good friend and the CEO of Demtech, who's our event partner here today. He's also, Mario is also the Spain community partner. So I'm going to ask Mario to say a couple of words about Demtech and what they're doing. And then we're going to turn it over and really have our open innovation in banking experts that are here today really talk about what's going on, not only the challenges, but also the opportunities that they're seeing. And based on time, we're going to try to take as many questions from you, the audience, and really try to, as I mentioned earlier, make it as interactive as possible. So with that said, just want to spend a little bit of time talking about FinTech Connector, especially because, again, this is our third town hall. We have a lot of new members that are joining us today from different parts of the world, and even for our existing members that know what we're doing, it's always good to use this as an opportunity to let you know where we are in terms of our journey and some of the things that we're looking to do with you as we continue to build out this platform that, in essence, is really looking to connect people, opportunities, and capital, both human and funding capital, to innovate financial services for a global impact. And for us, the importance of this is how do we, as a community, how do we, as a platform, bring trust and transparency to the FinTech world? And I think the best way to do that is how do we connect our members, both enablers and innovators, to collaborate on FinTech initiatives and ultimately cultivate those FinTech initiatives into financial services innovation that will benefit people around the world. What are some of the things that we're building? And as you know, as being a member of FinTech Connector, and even for those today that are not members of FinTech Connector that are joining us today for the first time, because we have some invited folks that are not necessarily members yet, really our goal is how do we bring people together using both our real world and our platform in terms of making targeted member connections. As I mentioned, is around really bringing together innovation, collaboration that ultimately might lead into investment opportunities. The great thing about our platform is the expertise that we have on both the enabler side and the innovator side to really use this as a platform for thought leadership and sharing of ideas. For many, it's also become an opportunity to find career opportunities. So as they're looking to make transitions, is potentially finding opportunities that will help them on their career, both within financial services innovation or within a FinTech company. And finally is how do we work with our banks and corporate partners to really allow them to tap into this network of and this thought leadership and this expertise and this innovation that we have growing now within FinTech Connector to advance that. And as I mentioned earlier, is really for me, and as we look at FinTech Connector, is how do we really use this as a platform to build that next generation of financial services innovation. Some of the things that we are working on, just for you to know, and some of these are already going live, is really, again, about creating an expert two-sided community for FinTech. And we're working on 3 key initiatives right now, one being our strategic relations partner, where we're working with financial institutions and corporate. And this is more along the lines of how do we help launch, expand and enhance FinTech innovation programs. Our Innovators Hub, which we are looking to launch at the end of October with one key event for these innovators, that's going to be just the start of the program, is the Innovators Hub. And this is really for early stage FinTech and banking innovation companies at the Angel to Series A. And the goal here is how do we help these companies start, grow, and build their FinTech businesses. And the final piece is how do we tap into the wealth of knowledge and experience within our network of professionals, investors, and service providers to be really a source of assistance and help and connecting them with the companies within our Innovators Hub to move that agenda forward. So our goal here is to be able to do that as well. Just before we move on, and I turn this over to Mario, one of the things that I wanted to share with you as well is where we are on our FinTech journey. So as you can see, our platform is steadily growing. This says 2,900 members, but we're close to 3,000 members now, and with a good representation across the Americas, across Europe, building out in Asia, Latin America. We recently announced a community partner in Sydney, Australia, who's actually helped already start bringing members there. And more importantly, we're starting to really make inroads in Africa. Chris Carmine, who is our director of development, has a program right now where he's working with a number of enablers and innovators in Africa to really start bringing out a lot of the innovation that we're seeing that's going on there. But not just that, it's really the experienced people that we also have. So right now we have pretty big communities in Kenya, in South Africa, and also in Ghana as being one of them as well. And I'm missing a country there. But anyway, the whole point is our goal there is to continue to build out that framework. As you can see, we are pretty much in a number of the financial centers in terms of our membership, but our diversity of our community is growing day by day, as represented by the graph there of our enablers and innovators. And ultimately, as I mentioned, is how do we start bringing together within these ecosystems the opportunities that our enablers are looking for to be able to then help out the innovators in terms of the services that they're requesting. And that is, again, the goal of us creating this expert two-sided marketplace. So with that said, what is the call to action for our members and our new members that have joined is really continue to help us grow our community. It's how do you invite your colleagues to be part of FinTech Connector, and together, let's really grow the FinTech community together and bring innovation for all. I'm going to invite now someone that I had the pleasure of being introduced to by, again, Chris Carmine when he was in Spain. He met with Mario Cohen, who is the CEO of Demtech, and he's going to talk a little bit about his company today. He is also the event partner today, and his team helped us, put this together. But another great thing about Mario is that based on that introduction, he is also, and his team are now the FinTech Connector community partners for Spain. And if you saw from the previous slide, it is one of the countries where we are actually expanding rapidly. And we're very happy to have him here today to talk a little bit about what he's doing with Demtech, and more importantly, some of the things that we're looking to do together, Demtech and FinTech Connector, in the coming months. So Mario, I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple of minutes before we get started with our programming.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Angel, for the kind introduction, and happy to be here as part of the FinTech Connector family. So hi, everybody. Just a few words about Demtech and what we've been doing the last years, and just to give you a brief understanding where we're coming from. The company's been around, Demtech's been around for the last 20 years, providing sales, business development for technology vendors, helping them to expand into Europe and Latin America regions. And especially in the last 10, 12 years, one of our key focus has been actually FinTech, banking and payment related technology, supporting companies to grow and to expand into these territories. A part of the sales and business development activities we're doing for startups and also financial services and FinTech companies to grow and to expand operations. We also provide another activities related to open innovation and scaling, supporting especially banks and financial institutions to grow and expand their network of a relationship with potential startups, and helping them as an external partner to be able to support the innovation needs and to develop any kind of challenges or selection of potential startups that actually fit their corporate needs. The third part of the activities we are actually providing is the relationships with VCs and funds. This is actually very important as we believe that the combination of funding and scaling actually provides quite a strength service for VCs, not only just from the funding point of view, but also supporting VCs to scale and to expand companies from the portfolio to be able to support their go-to-market and expansion into new markets. So we have alliances and partnership with VCs. Many of them actually focus on FinTech investments, where we are supporting some of these companies, especially when they are getting to phase around A, around B. Some of these companies are actually in the process to grow and to scale into new markets. So that's the three business lines that we have today. One focus for FinTech companies, second is for corporates, and the third for VCs. And this is And this is basically a kind of a sub areas in the technology area to what we have been experienced and working with different technology companies, supporting and helping them to expand their operations in all these technology verticals. And just to finalize, this is a summary of our ecosystem and where we see our activities happening between corporates, between venture capitals, between hubs and technology vendors. So we do provide services to all of these players, and we are also trying to build synergies between all of these business areas to be able to provide different services and activities to be able to expand and to scale companies in the European and Latin American markets. So, so I think this is basically about Demtech. Just to give you a high-level understanding. Definitely, if you need any information, I'll be happy to connect or to actually look for me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to connect and to help you to any kind of activities related to one of the services that we provide. And happy to be part of the FinTech Connector family, where we are actually building interesting services for the all members and for all the different territories that we are actually looking to promote.
So thank you, Mario, for that. I appreciate it. And again, thanks for being an event partner today, and also more importantly for inviting some of the speakers that we have today as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And by the way, just want to add, yes, you could reach Mario through LinkedIn, but you could also reach Mario through FinTech Connector by using our platform, both the web platform, and if you haven't downloaded it yet, you could definitely download our mobile app and connect with him there as well. So Mario, thank you very much for that, and we're really looking forward to continuing to work with you and Demtech as we're looking to expand the services offering within the FinTech and the financial services space.
Thank you very much.
All right, so now let's get started. And I really want to make sure that we stay on point because we have a lot of great information to share. So what I will do now is I will ask Vikas, who's going to be our first speaker today, to join us. Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing here because I want to have the screen. So Vikas, thank you very much for your time today, joining us from Chicago. Why don't we get started? Because as we're looking to do this, we're going to do this in 8 to 9 minute sprints for each speaker, based on questions that I will add to questions around really the challenges that we're seeing in open innovation in banking, and also some of the opportunities, particularly over the last couple of months as things are starting to hopefully ease up a bit. But before we get started, why don't you spend a minute telling our audience a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure, Angel. Happy to do so. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. I'm very excited to be part of this. And you know that I've been associated with FinTech Connector for a while now, probably about 3 years, and it's been an exciting journey. So I'm currently working as the regional lead for HCL Technologies, taking care of financial services business in North America. So I've been in the technology services, consulting and outsourcing industry for over 25 years, predominantly serving clients in the financial services. I've successfully managed several consulting and outsourcing engagements and relationships as a client partner for various banks and financial services institutions, and have delivered various transformation projects and delivered on key business objectives. I go across insurance, capital markets, and banking clients. And as you mentioned, I'm based out of Chicago here.
So thank you, Vikas, for that introduction. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about some of the, going into 2020, there was a lot of energy, a lot of excitement within the FinTech financial services space around innovation, around investment in this area. And then, COVID-19 happened, right? Or it started to happen. Particularly as we look at the Americas, talk about some of the challenges that you faced, or particularly how you see it in the Americas piece, because that's primarily where your clients are based. What are some of the challenges that you were seeing early on as it relates to open innovation in banking? And feel free to even explain a little bit about how you view open innovation in banking before tackling that question.
Sure, Angel. So thank you for that question. So open innovation as a concept, is fairly old. I mean, it was formalized, I would say, probably in early 2000s. But from a banking industry, and especially from America's perspective, it's a fairly new concept, or adoption of open innovation is fairly new within the banking industry, especially in the US, right? So open innovation, basically what it means is that you're inviting innovation from outside of your organizational walls, right? So you're engaging with people who are outside, either as companies, or even people, to invite innovative ideas to help you come up with better business models or solve certain problems or challenges that you face in your business, right? So that said, the banking industry, especially in the US, has been not very open in terms of inviting innovation from outside their walls, right? What really accelerated that phenomena in the US is coming together of a few events, starting with the launch of iPhone in 2007 and kind of smartphones taking off from that point. And then the financial crisis of 2008-9 happened, which kind of gave a lot of impetus on people looking at different business models. And there was some kind of, there were a lot of people who were out of jobs. The young people who graduated during those years were looking for doing things that were different or new. And then there were these technologies that were becoming popular, like your, cloud APIs and big data. So all these factors came together to give rise to a startup ecosystem. And the venture capitalists were also looking for newer avenues to invest their money in, beyond the traditional banks and other corporates. So it, right around 2010-11, it gave rise to this whole startup ecosystem. And by 2014, the investments in FinTech startups had taken off to the extent where FinTech as a term became popular, and banks started taking notice of that, right? And during those times, banks were still skeptic of the whole FinTech trend. Some banks were looking at them as either threats or just sort of a flash in the pan kind of a phenomena. But in response to the growing popularity of fintechs, they started creating these innovation outposts or innovation hubs, setting up offices in hubs such as Silicon Valley or New York, to kind of respond to the trend that was happening with the fintech startups. But these innovation centers were still largely isolated, not very well integrated with the rest of the banks, where the banks were kind of still doing things the old traditional way, right? But in last 2-3 years, things have changed a little bit, where banks are now engaging more with startups and inviting open innovation by executing things like hackathons and engaging with startups through their own accelerators and innovation hubs. So they're opening, but that said, what I would say is that the banking industry in the US is still far behind as compared to the banks in Europe and Asia, right? There's a lot more happening in terms of open innovation outside of the US.
Okay, can I just add to that? Then? So are we seeing that, just kind of fast forwarding a little bit to today, particularly the last 4 or 5 months, as we're seeing the trend picking up, but still falling behind? Do we think that the whole situation with the pandemic and how things have just kind of, in some cases, abruptly stopped, has that really introduced a new level of kind of pulling back and being backwards, or are we starting to see opportunities opening up again? Like, what is your assessment there from your experience?
Right. So, so in terms of the pandemic and the response of the banking industry to the current situation, we see, again, I'm not in the industry, I'm outside the industry, but as a service provider to the industry, we see kind of 2 or 3 different trends, right? So there are some banks, which are, I would say, the leaders, and they have been able to respond to the pandemic situation by, going either fully digital or, continuing, or their innovation efforts had started, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago, and those are bearing fruit right now in terms of their response to the COVID situation, right? But then there are laggards or people or the banks who did not really take those measures. They're suffering, right? So banks that have predominantly dependent on branches or branch banking, where because of the lockdowns, people are not able to go to the branch, or either in terms of opening their accounts or taking out loans and things like that, or conduct transactions. If you do not have end-to-end digital capability, those banks are suffering, and so are their consumers, right? So in terms of the trends, the first couple of months we saw a little bit of a pullback. Everybody kind of got into a pause mode, where they wanted to kind of weigh and see how this pandemic is going to pan out in terms of their response. And everybody was focused on enabling their workforce to be able to work from home, right? And things like the technology such as this, like Zoom or other conferencing platforms or collaboration platforms, and cybersecurity, they became very, very important. And they are still quite important in terms of empowering and enabling the workforce to support bank clients, right? But in terms of the end-to-end digital capability, I think there's still a lot of work to be done, especially I would say maybe 90% of the banks in the US are far behind. It's only maybe the top 5 to 10% banks who have the ability to conduct business digitally end to end, right? Beyond just having mobile applications where you can check balances or deposit checks. So especially in terms of small businesses, the business banking is lagging behind in terms of digital onboarding and things like that. On the retail side, it's still a little bit better.
Got it. So before we end and we move on, but this is very helpful, how you, particularly because your experience, Vikas, and also your role where you work with a number of players around this, right, around the country, are you bullish or bearish on the opportunities within open innovation in banking in the Americas in the next 2 to 3 years?
I'm certainly bullish about the long-term trend. It has to happen. And again, a couple of events like FDIC recently announced a competition inviting 20 or so tech companies to help them with modernizing the call reports that the banks submit to FDIC, right? So, which is a good sign, where a regulator in the US is coming forward and doing something like a hackathon to help with the call reports. And call reports, for people who don't know that well, it's I believe a monthly or a quarterly report that is submitted by the banks to the regulators, where regulators can do a health check of the bank as to how they are doing, right? So, and it requires over 2,000 data elements to be submitted to the regulator, right? So things like that are happening. On the flip side, OCC had come out with a FinTech charter a couple of years ago to award banking licenses to FinTech startups to operate and provide banking services to the consumers directly, and that hasn't really gone anywhere. Last 2 years it's been struggling in because in US we have 50 states, and every state gets to regulate their own businesses, and the FinTech charter that was rolled out by the OCC got challenged in the New York Department of Financial Services. So there's both things happening, but over the long term, I'm hopeful that things will change, and there will be more adoption of open innovation.
So to summarize, you're bullish, but with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Vikas, please stick around. Thank you for that insights, particularly around where we've seen some of the challenges in terms of your experience and some of the opportunities here in the Americas. We're going to come back to you at the end when we bring everybody together, and we'll have questions from the audience. So at this point, I'm going to ask you, thanks again, to please turn off your camera, and I'm going to ask Pablo if you could please join us here.
Hello, Angel. How are you?
Pablo,
nice to be here.
Good to see you again, and thank you very much for joining us today. You are in the United Emirates in Dubai, is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation, Angel, and for being part of this really nice panel. I'm going to try to give you an overview of what's happening on the fintech and banking side here in the region, specifically in Dubai, which is where I'm based.
And before you get started, tell us a little bit about yourself for the audience members here, who you are and what you do within your space. I know you have a pretty
absolutely. Well, I've been working in banking right now for over 20 plus years. So I started my career working at JP Chase in London. I'm a computer science engineer, which effectively moved in from technology and technology management into more digital banking and looking at how, from an innovation perspective and from a digital perspective, you can help businesses to transform themselves and also to drive into new business models. So effectively, my career started at JP Chase in London. Then I moved to Banco Santander, where I had different positions. I spent 9 years at JP and over 11 years at Santander. In Santander, I started working in London, also helping Santander on their transformation from a technology perspective. So Santander, over 10 years, they acquired more than 20 banks, and I started basically with Abbey National, which was one of the first banks that they acquired in the UK. These were the days where Santander, it wasn't really a brand known in the mainstream. So we had a lot of work to do, just trying to move Abbey National to the next level. Then I occupied positions within technology management for corporate banking, investment banking, and Santander, and finished my career at Santander in open innovation, putting together fintech acceleration programs, partnerships with venture capitals, looking at how you can effectively bring in innovation from the outside and trying to bring this innovation through fintechs, which we started to partner with fintechs back in 2015, 2016. And these were the initial days where fintechs were becoming a real big trend in the market. Then I moved to a smaller bank in Spain called Liberbank to head the digital innovation and transformation for Liberbank, and I did that for 3 years. And a year ago, I decided to move to Middle East. I was basically brought to Dubai. Really exciting place, full of things happening, a lot of talented people. For those of you that don't know Dubai, 80% of the population is expat, 20% is Emirati. Emiratis are really nice, and they welcome basically anyone that wants to come here and help them to make an impact in a positive way to the country and bring knowledge. So I joined the Commercial Bank of Dubai to head the digital banking for Commercial Bank of Dubai, and effectively I've been over 9 months helping them in this roadmap, and this is a bit of my background.
So let's just then jump right into it. So clearly you have a lot of experience of global in nature in terms of your experience, or in a number of institutions in the digital banking and open innovation. But let's think specifically to the Middle East from your experience and your interactions over the last 9 months there. So tell us some of the challenges that you've come across, and as it relates to those challenges, do they tend to be very country specific or regional specific around some of the work that you've done? So if you could just elaborate on some of the challenges that you've faced while being in the Middle East.
Okay, well, I think the banking sector in the Middle East, specifically, in Dubai or Emirates, I mean, there is a lot of banks right now. I think in Europe, for example, they've been doing a lot of concentration. So effectively, the market, due to interest rates being very low, central banks have been pushing banks to merge. And effectively, there's been a real downsize in the number of banks that, from a retail and SME perspective, you have in the market. No, I think here still there is a large number of banks, not only in Emirates but also in the rest of the Middle East. So now with the new COVID-19 situation, with interest rates going down, I'm sure there will be some room for mergers and acquisitions. Similar to what we experienced in Europe some years back, where we faced huge economic downturn. So from that perspective, the FinTech ecosystem is still starting to emerge. So the regulator hasn't really provided the same level of open regulatory guidance. So for example, in Europe, the regulator, the central bank, basically imposed the PSD2 as a directive to open banks and make competition and innovation to drive. And this also helped fintechs to be able to position within this space, no? And this is where effectively banks started to partner more and more with fintechs. So in a way, you need the regulation to enable some of the innovation to happen. I think this is now the case potentially in the region. I think different governments, they are quite keen on fostering innovation. They are effectively trying to bring in talent to the region, and also to bring some of the fintech experts to be here in the region. And so, for example, here in Dubai, FinTech Hive is a platform that they built to be able to bring some of these fintech startups. They scout around all the different regions, trying to invite startups that they want to come over here and have, they're based in Dubai, and try to bring their business models and effectively partner with banks. But still very early days if you compare with other more mature markets like in Europe, for example, or in Asia. I mean, I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the region to develop itself, for banks also. Now, I think due to the COVID situation, a lot of banks realize that they have to accelerate the digital transformation, and they will potentially see this also as an opportunity to partner with fintechs. So really excited, to be honest. I mean, what's happening here in the region with not only UAE, but other countries like, for example, the Kingdom, Saudi. I mean, they are heavily investing in fintech. They build also their own VC fund to try to bring all these fintechs into the region. They are launching around 6 digital banks just in Saudi. I think we're going to see a lot of new digital banks being launched across the region, because at the end of the day, they see this as a clear alternative to more the traditional banks. Because transformation at the end of the day takes time and it's hard. Yeah. And you need to change the legacy system, no? So some banks have decided, okay, let's go for building our own digital bank. Some others they're trying to transform themselves, or in some occasions they are acquiring fintechs. Although here still the fintechs are still a low number, and so I think there is a very greenfield area to explore and position yourself within the region.
Yeah, no, and Pablo, just to add to that though, so I mean, clearly, definitely there is regional momentum. Clearly, the UAE, Saudi leading the efforts based on what you're saying. Do you envision in the next 2 to 3 years for that? I mean, just based on your experience and how the region works, do you envision that to still stay regionalized, or do you expect it more them reaching out and becoming even a global player with other markets around the world, just as to expand that? I mean, I get it. They're early stages, but ultimately, what do you hear are some of the objectives and goals of where they want to be maybe 2 to 3 years down the line? If you could share that.
Well, I think for banks in the region, there's a big opportunity. I mean, not only in Emirates and Saudi, but I mean countries like Kuwait, for example. I mean, they are also looking at building their own value proposition, or Bahrain, for example, Jordan, Lebanon, Qatar. I think all in all, the whole region is starting to open, and I think digital is an opportunity, no? I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you build a good platform, you could open bank accounts, within minutes. You can operate, just by your mobile app. So potentially, new neobanks from the likes of TransferWise, Revolut, Monzo. I mean, I'm sure they have their eyes. Some of them they announced that they will start operating in the region. So I think all in all, the more you discover this region, the more exciting it becomes, because I think the opportunities are endless. I mean, and at the end of the day, they have the resources. I think there is I think the timing is right, and this is one of the reasons it got me to come over. So I think all in all, things are also settling down. And with, for example, Expo 2020 was due this year. It was delayed for 2021. So hopefully, where things settle down due to COVID and economies start recovering, this is the momentum. This is the right place to be for digital. So I think let's see how things go in the next months. But the appetite is there, and I think banks specifically, they have to move forward on their digital transformation, and also the competition is going to be it's going to be there. I think digital brings that competition and opens the market, and open innovation, open banking. At the end of the day, there are ways for making this happen. So
thank you.
Very excited.
So Pablo, thank you very much for your insights, particularly what's going on as it relates to open innovation in the Middle East. So at this point, I'll ask you to stick around. We'll have some Q&A at the end as well. So please feel free to shut off camera and mic. And I'm going to invite Ainhoa Campo, Nieto from BBVA, if she could please join us. Let me see if I could. Wait 1 second.
Hello?
Yes, I could hear you. Can you turn on your camera? Is it possible?
It says that I cannot. That someone broke.
Hold on. Let me try. Let me try. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Try that now.
Ah, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hello.
Who are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. So,
Very happy to be here.
and we're very happy to have you. So, Ainhoa, maybe you could start a little bit by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do, particularly at BBVA.
Okay. Well, I've been working in the financial arena during all my career. I started in analyzing in the stock exchange the corporations that I jump into M&A arena, and then I started to specialize in analyzing M&A for technology companies. Finally, I jumped into BBVA 10 years ago. I've been always involved in innovation stuff, but in many different ways, because in 10 years, everybody talks about innovation, but nobody knows how to tackle with it. So it's been a very funny year. I have fun along the journey. I started doing more about what is going to happen in 2020, and I must tell you, we did like a view of what is going to happen in 2010 for what is going to happen in 2020, and nobody talks about this pandemic. So
yeah,
I've been talking with my colleagues about that, and not laughing, but just being very surprised about all this. And then we started a new way of doing things, and I was involved more not only in this part of strategy, but in developing internal projects for BBVA, in these ones that were supposed to be more disruptive. Mm-hmm. And for these last 3 years, I've been involved in this open innovation team. We have changed the view of this open innovation theme for the last 3 years quite a lot, but I think it's not only because we have been involved in these 3 last years, it's because we have a journey of what was this thing of open innovation. I think 10 years ago, the concept already exists, but nobody knows what to do with it. And in the last 3 years or in the last 5 years, the ecosystem is mature enough, we are mature enough, and we are able to do more things than before. No?
Yeah, and I mean, just from the history, BBVA tends to be a very innovative in terms of how it spreads. I mean, there's definitely a lot of great articles about what you guys are doing, whether it's in Europe, even in Latin America. So, I mean, I'm going to talk to you specifically about those markets, if you could add your perspective. But as we're looking at where we are today, and we go back 6 months, and to your point, 10 years ago, who would have thought there would have been a pandemic to deal with, right? It wasn't in the plans. What are some of the challenges that, as you look at running the open, heading up the open innovation, what are some of the challenges that you've come across initially when the pandemic hit, and how that threw kind of a wrench or an unknown into that equation? If you could please elaborate on that.
You mean how the pandemic has impacted us, or before that? Well,
so talk a little bit about before, but then the pandemic hit, and that created clearly a change in plans. And maybe it didn't. Maybe you continue to move forward with the plans as is. But if there were challenges, can you elaborate on what those challenges? And then we'll talk about the opportunities that are now coming forward on the back of that.
Well, first of all, I can talk about the challenge of open innovation itself, that are quite a lot. Because although Vikas, thank you very much for telling us that Europe is maybe a little bit ahead, but I'm not so sure about that. But I mean, the first challenge is to understand where was the intersection, so where were the matching point between the corporations and the startups. No, I think that maybe 10 years ago there was a place of talking about that, but nobody knows about that. So, and the ecosystem was too small. So we were more about doing things around understanding that, talking with fintechs, everybody said that they were going to disrupt us, and it was like a kind of fighting, no? And we started doing this kind of competitions, maybe some, we had, for example, open talent as a competition to arise new talent, or maybe we started to develop incubators and this stuff, but then to impact that, or to bring this new knowledge into the bank was very, very difficult, no? And now we are in the second part. First of all, we understand that the first thing is to go to the source, to go to the bank and try to understand our strategy, our roadmap, what you want to do, and why maybe some stuff that you want to do is already in the market, or maybe I can put you together to talk with any startup, or even not only a startup, but a corporation or a big tech, and try to develop something together. And then once you have that, you have a huge nightmare inside a corporation, because we are very, very slow in doing anything. So we have to improve our internal process in order to do that, in order to do these collaborations with the startups, no? And finally, I think we are jumping into this third stage, that is the place where we are already prepared enough, because the ecosystem is mature to work with the bank, and the bank is prepared enough to work with the startups, and not only with the startups, but with corporations, and we talk with corporations and with big techs. And the next steps for me is open banking. For me, open banking is a new concept, is bigger even than open innovation, but is the next step of open innovation, because if you develop this platform open enough, and with the different APIs or different services open enough for the community, they will be able to use these different services that we already have, without having all these problems around legal compliance, risk, or whatever, because it has been already set up at the very beginning. So this will help us to develop this open innovation in a quicker way. No?
Got it.
Having said that, this is like our main roadmap of doing things in open innovation. But then the pandemic came. And I think that the issue is not for open innovation now, or I think the issue of the change of strategies for the bank itself, no? And this will lead us to see open innovation not in another way, but aligned with the strategy of the bank. I think we will continue doing the same processes, or improving our internal processes in order to do this open innovation, but we will be focusing maybe in other things, or other companies, industries, or trends, because the bank is maybe looking at other things because the strategy changed, no? Right. And in this part, what we are seeing in all this pandemic thing is that for banks, all the things related digital is the key, no? But we have been working in this digitalization of the bank for the last 10 years, or even more, no? And we already have most of our products and services digitalized. So this is not the issue. So we have to develop things on top of that regarding the situation that we have. All these things of not having contact, no? And the contactless is not only now for payments, but maybe for all the relationships, or maybe even when you go to your branch to grab some money, you will have to do it in another way that is not the way that we have been doing for the last years. So I think that the change is going to be for the whole strategy of the bank, of trying to understand what kind of relationship we are going to have with our clients, and the rules that we are going to play right now, to understand what we are going to focus. But I think my feeling is that our internal processes as open innovation and all these things that we are doing in open innovation, open banking, is these are tools that we are going to use in the same way.
Understood. Let's talk really quick. Another question I want to talk about opportunities within this space. I'm going to regionalize this. So let's talk about Latin America. If you look at Latin America, what are some of the, as you speak to different banks or speak to different partners and fintechs, what are the opportunities that you're seeing in Latin America? And then the same part of it, what are some of the things that you're seeing in Europe? Because they're two different markets, and probably I'm assuming that what you're looking at is very different. So if you could please elaborate on that.
Well, we try to look at the same things. It's true that the level of digitalization and the needs of the market is not the same here in Europe that in Latin America. But as we try to be a global company, we have to develop the same things in no matter the geography that we are, no? So the main goal is that we have the same customer experience, the same products and the same solutions for every single country where we are, no? Having said that, for example, in general, in Latin America, we have a great issue with the cash management, no? And the digitalization of the population of our clients. But this is like a global issue that we are trying to solve. But having said that, I would say that we try to work in the same path for both continents. One of the things that, for example, we've been focusing in the first semester, in the first part of this year, for sure, fraud, no? And more in the digital, fraud is always an issue, but in the digital world is even bigger, no? So we are focusing in solutions in fraud, mainly when we are acquiring new clients, no? And we are working in things regarding biometrics, regarding data, no matter the way or data sources, and new scorings. Okay, and then we are working a lot in the first part of the year. We've been focused a lot in the enterprise solution side. So we've been working in things of how improve our onboarding for SMEs. Because, for example, for the retail part of our customers, we have an online onboarding that is seamless and with pretty good. But for the SMEs, it's quite difficult to have a digital onboarding because we have a lot of documents, registrations, and we want to digitalize it. And the third thing that we have been focused is mainly in improving the solutions regarding trade finance, not for corporates, but for SMEs again, no? Because they are the ones that have more issues in order to have a good solutions or good services in trade finance. And we are working on that, no? And now for this, although we already have find out some solutions, we are already working for the rest of the year. We've been working in these opportunities again. But again, for these second years, as for example, payments, no, is key right now with all this issue of COVID. So we are working in different solutions regarding payments. Again, biometrics and this stuff, but then we are doing like some verticalization regarding payments, improving the issuing part for corporates with new cards for corporates. Then we are working on improving our values, our new services on credit cards. And finally, improving the solutions in our POS in the digital side, no? Not only by giving to our merchants better services, but giving financing solutions in an online way.
Seems like you have your work cut out for you at BBVA. There's a lot going on, which is good.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for sharing your perspective now. I know we're running a little bit over, but if you can shut up your camera, and we're going to invite Carlos to join us, maybe add some final perspective, and then look, we're getting some good questions. So I'd like to, I know we're going to run a little bit over. For those that could stay with us, would be great, because and Ainhoa, hopefully you could remain as well and ask for a little bit longer as well, and we're going to go to the question. For Carlos, why don't you join us? now, please, and give me 1 second. And no, I'm going to shut off your camera here for a second. If you don't mind. Nope, having a hard time doing that right now. Apology. Here we go.
That's fine.
All right, Carlos.
Hey, hi, good to see you. How's everyone?
Good to see you again as well. So look, Carlos, why don't we, in the interest of time, let's just jump into high level. We're going to go into the question. Maybe spend 30 seconds telling us a little bit about you. I know we've had you before for our sound bites, but give us 10 seconds about you and what you do at Demtech, and then let's get into some of the opportunities that we're seeing.
Well, so basically I come from the consultancy sector. I have been working the last 10 years in consultancy. I have been in many areas. The last couple of years, I have been leaning forward more the financial services area, especially what relates to fintechs, payments. And I joined Demtech like about 4 years ago, right? I started like mainly a strategy and advisory for providing go-to-market plans and X amount of services for fintechs itself. And then we decided to move on to the open innovation area within the company. And now I am the head of open innovation inside Demtech, right? So this is really short.
No, perfect. That love it. Short, sweet, and to the point. So Carlos, tell us a little bit, because being in the business of Demtech and you guys have been in this open innovation for a while. So you've seen trends. You've seen the trend happen, not just one client, but multiple clients. Tell us some of the challenges. Tell us how what's happened in the last 6 months impacted this from your perspective in terms of delivering to clients. And a lot of your clients, just to level set and correct me if I'm wrong, are in Europe, Israel, and Latin America. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct. Let me work a little bit on this, because I believe that the area or region that has been most greatly affected, it has been the Latin American region. Because what we have seen is that they have a lot of manual processes, and they are not so digitized, right? So what we have seen in that specific area, it is that open innovation itself really opens up a new solutions, opens up new perspective, especially during this pandemic that we're seeing in a region that it doesn't have that many resources in order to digitalize many of their own processes, right? So this is really crucial when other players come, just like Vikas mentioned, just like other players comes into the corporate ecosystem, and they provide their know-how, their technologies, and their products in order for companies to expand and grow new business lines. So this is exactly what we're seeing it, right?
Great. So opportunities. Where are we going? Where are we going with this? What are you seeing? What is Demtech seeing right now? What are you guys seeing in terms of the opportunities? If you could maybe share 2 or 3 in terms of what's going on in the market.
Well, regarding opportunities of open innovation in the market, basically what we're seeing in terms of providing this type of services is that first and foremost, many of the companies that want to provide this type of programs, really, they do not have the internal support to do it. So this is a new opportunity for us, especially for providing this type of services. And other type of companies, they are really having a lot of struggles trying to execute, right? Because one of the things that we want to create an open innovation program, but you really do not have the internal resources and you don't have the ability to execute this type of activities, right? Having said that, what is refers precisely to the banking services, what we are seeing it is definitely. This has been always a talk, but now we believe that at least with open innovation in the banking areas in Latin America, banks will become a little bit more flexible, trying to to bankerize the retail consumers on it. And it's funny because, for example, the Latin America region before, like 2 years ago, it was like we didn't have that many chapters of open innovation. It was like about 60 to 70 chapters working. And now in less than 2 years, we have about 190 chapters opening across the Latin American region, which is an exponential growth. And also what we are seeing is that in terms of innovation itself, we're seeing a really clear differentiation path, what is happening in Europe, right? In Europe, we started like about 10 or 6 years ago in the channel approach, and then we proceed into a product approach. And now Latin America, what is taking charge is mainly the Asian influence, right? Mm-hmm. In which is not that much of the center-wise on the product. It is being as well working the way in the innovation to creating new type of channels, right? And this is something that we can see. For example, Cohen is one of the companies that is working a lot of these ones. Is trying to create this type of platform so everybody can be interconnected as well.
So one last question, Carlos, before we open it up for the audience questions. We have a number of questions that are already coming through. Hmm? If I'm a FinTech company, this is a hypothetical. If I'm a FinTech company with a cutting edge solution, and I want to, and I might open this up also to Ainhoa and Pablo later on. I'm a FinTech company, cutting edge solution, want to meet partners at financial services. What is the advice that you would give to them in terms of making sure that they have, like we say in the Americas, all their ducks in a row to be able to have a successful meeting with one of these institutions? Any advice?
Any advice between you are a FinTech company that wants to connect with a bank, for example? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. First and foremost, this will depend. This will depend on the area that you're working on, right? But the market. But let's say get your legal advice. That is one thing definitely clear. You might have. I saw some of the questions here from the attendees regarding regulations. I believe that this is an important topic to view. Second one, the bank or the bank that you will join or that you must join, first of all, must have this type of cross-department approach. That means that your technology, your product, your FinTech will be able to go from not only the payments department, but also it can be cross-channel within the bank. This bank must also have the ecosystem enough, sustain enough with venture capital, with other type of fintechs that can help you, and also a list of clients, in order to deploy your solution. This is key. This is key to know. Especially one of the things that we're seeing with fintechs in Latin America region is that many of them actually have been invested by corporate venture, right? So it's not the natural VC or private equity that is taking part. It's actually the corporate venture that is investing in the several solutions that actually will be part of the bank ecosystem, right?
That is interesting. I'm going to come back. I'm going to invite everyone else to join now. Thank you, Carlos, for that. I'm going to invite everyone else, all of our panelists, to please open up their cameras. And I'll try. If you can't, I will set you up as well. Let me try to hear. Let me do this again. There we go. Perfect. And you could please unmute yourselves as well. Carlos, please, if you want to turn on your camera as well. I'm sorry, Carlos is on. Mario, if you want to also join us in this conversation, I think it'll be helpful, especially with your experience. But the question, I want to go back to that venture question, and I'm going to open it up to everyone. You mentioned something about the corporate venture arm versus like private, venture capital. Can you tell me why banks are doing that, and why a company like a FinTech would take that instead of the venture capital? Because I would think that once you take the corporate venture from a bank, you're in essence building for them. Do I got that right or wrong? Do you want to share on that? Like, how does that work? Anybody, please. But I'll start with you, Carlos, since you mentioned that, and then we can expand to others.
Well, you have, you might have different banks that have also a venture area. For example, you have BBVA that has its venture side area. But I know that Ainhoa can elaborate on that. You also have Santander Bank, and then also you might have other type of banks that have their venture arm. Also, what is going on is, for example, some consultancy firms are doing this. One of these is Accenture, that they have their own corporate ventures, and what they do is once they invest in a given, in order to allocate this type of services for reselling them to their own clients, right? Actually, they decide to leave the company on the hands of their owners. most of the time, because they are pretty good in saying, listen up, you guys doing what you guys are perfect fit about what we do. You guys have pretty much independence of what you're looking at, and you are free to go under our arm. But this might depend exactly on what type of company are you looking for. So this is something that you have to see, right?
Does anyone else, Noah or Pablo, from a banking perspective,
Yes,
want to elaborate?
I can give you my perspective. I mean, I've been doing open innovation in Santander, Liberbank, and Commercial Bank of Dubai. We also had an innovation hub. I mean, at the end of the day, fintechs have a very different goal from banks. I mean, fintech has a goal which is finding their niche market, value proposition, try to scale as fast as possible, and obviously they have the resources they have. They have the fundraising they have, and at the end of the day, they don't have the time, and sometimes banks have a different agenda. They have a different rhythm, a different path. And this is where, making sure that you have the right appetite, the right timing, and also that, the alignment is the same. This is where partnerships make sense. What it doesn't make sense is that you create like false expectations for fintechs, thinking that they are going to do POCs with you and potentially that you're going to help them to scale or, to make a new business. And this, I think some years ago it used to be more this way. I mean, nowadays I think the maturity of the environment. I mean, one, fintechs have learned the lesson, so they don't waste time. They automatically understand, this is something that makes sense, or okay, see you tomorrow. Second thing, I think banks, in this case, they have a clear vision of what they want and why they will be looking for partnerships through fintechs. I think this is the most important thing. Otherwise, it's a waste of time for the fintechs and for the bank as well, because at the end of the day, what you really want is to partner with someone that you can put things into play. If you're just going to do a POC just to learn, I mean, to be honest, it's a bit of a waste of time. Obviously, for the bank, it's good because they can learn from the fintech and get the culture. But at the end of the day, it defeats, from my perspective, the point, which is going to market with a new business model, or going to market with a value proposition that potentially the fintech will give you the speed, the agility to do it. And this is what it makes sense. And this is where partnerships between fintech and banks make a lot of sense. But it has to be done in this way.
Thank you,
my experience.
Thank you, Pablo. Go ahead and ask if you had anything to add to that. Do you have anything to add to that, Ainhoa?
Yeah, building on that, I completely agree with Pablo, and for this reason, the first thing that we look once we have this need or this thing that the bank is looking or is needing, we go outside into the market, and the kind of companies that we try to look for are companies that are mature enough. So we don't talk about startups anymore, no? Or we talk about innovation, or we talk about this company that is going to solve the problem that we have. And we need to have these companies that they are not an idea, they are not building the product, no? They have to have already a product. They have to be mature enough in two sense. It's not only because they have the product, but they have the knowledge of the market. Because we are regulated companies, and very regulated, and each year even more, no? So they have to understand the same issues that we have regarding the data, regarding that we have to give trustworthy to our clients and all these things. And they have to have financial security too, because if we have any issue, at the end of the day, the regulator is going to come to us, no? And although we do a pilot or whatever, and if we go to do this scale and we want to go to production with them, they have to be big enough to do that, no? So talking about the startups is quite tricky. And the second part is that what Pablo said, no? We cannot have these startups of these companies hanging around waiting for us, no? Because at the end of the day, they will be killed by us because we are so slow, no? But and we are too shy to say no. And this is one of the roles that I have in Open Innovation, to teach internally to our business units that it doesn't matter if you say no. It's better that you say no today. Maybe in 1 year you can go back and talk again with this company, but don't give them not good expectation of something, and maybe as they are willing to work with us, they are waiting for us, and maybe we'll kill them, no?
Yeah.
Wanting, but yes, we are like an elephant, no? You sit down and you do your best. So this is the two sides of the game.
No, thank you for that. That's very, very helpful from Pablo and Noah.
Fully agree.
From the audience, Martin Chacon is actually, the question is, with challenger banks on the rise, how will they deal with the different licensing requirements by regions, countries, and even individual states within countries to have true open banking? Does anyone want to tackle that question around the challenger bank and your experience with them?
So let me take that from a US perspective. US probably has the most diverse sort of regulatory landscape because all 50 states have their own regulatory mandates, as well as you have to deal with the federal regulation on top of that. And there's probably about a dozen or so different regulatory agencies in the US that regulate various financial services companies, right? So from a fintech perspective, it is a huge challenge, both from time and money perspective, because every application costs money and takes time to get approved, right? So if they want to do business across the nation and they want to get the appropriate licensing and approvals to operate as a bank or as a financial services company, they have to go through that process, and it can take a couple of years probably. So with that intent, OCC had come out with a fintech charter back in 2018, which has not been successful because of different motivations of the various state agencies or state regulators. So that's a challenge in the US for sure. But in terms of, let's say, a bank launches its own digital-only challenger bank, like MUFG has done that in US. Chase had done it with Fin in US, but they've withdrawn that. For them, because they operate under the umbrella of the parent's license, it's a lot easier for them. So if a fintech wants to partner with a bank to operate across US, it's a much easier route for them to take.
Got it. And any perspectives on the Europe, Middle East, or other regions that anyone else would want to comment on?
Well, I would like to cover a little bit as well on that section, because just like Vikas is mentioning, regulatory will vary from country to country. You might have the exceptions here, like for example, once you're in the EU, in the European Union, at least you can able to work across several countries. But let's say in Latin America, each country has their own legislation, right? What we are seeing right now is that at least there are several initiatives between each one of the countries that try to facilitate fintechs to grow, right? Such example is the 2018 law in Mexican market. Also, you have the 2017 law on the Chilean market, to give you two precise examples. We are seeing what we are seeing is that maybe there might be some regulatory aspects between certain Latin American countries, especially, let's say, for example, the Central American region. They are working on a new law that it might promote fintech not only in one single country, but also in the rest of the Central American. Of course, it is a small market, but it's something that we're seeing it. So you're joining several legislations into only one, right? This can also there are some rumors that this can also be happening between Chile and Argentina, right? This could actually facilitate Mercado Pago or Uala, right? Which is also a new bank. And well, you might also have, and the Brazilian market is really big. That's why you have examples like Nubank or Omnibank that are that area, right? And they are new banks. So let's see what's happening. I believe that that should cover, but each one at least is governed by their own legislation, and they might be unified in this type per country, right?
I think Pablo, sorry. I think to add on the regulatory front, which I think is fundamental, no, to be able to have the central bank backing, because some of these fintechs they need their regulatory sandbox to be able to position themselves, and they need the licensing, they need the support. And banks, they need at the end of the day to go to the central banks and ask for permission. First things that they will normally ask is whether the data is going to reside. And I think this is an element which, let's face it, in Europe it's done extremely well. I mean, it's been very painful. I mean, I had to implement open banking myself, and I know how painful it was in Liberbank to meet the PSD2 requirements. But at the end of the day, it generates also an attitude and changes the perspective. I think open banking, open business is also around changing the culture, changing the way that banks think about elaborating their products. Not the typical distribution model based on everything is in house, and I will sell my products, only my products through my channels. I think this is where open banking, open business, open data, I mean, it brings banking to another level, because at the end of the day, you become a platform. And this is basically how you are going to compete in the new market. This is where the big techs are positioning themselves, the likes of Amazon, Google, I mean, all the Facebook. What they're doing is based new financial products based on knowing the customer, having the relationship with the customer, and being able to serve financial products and services through their platforms. So the competition here is not only with with the likes of the fintechs, which at the end of the day it has proved that they are more allies than competitors. Is with the big techs that effectively they can basically take a big slide of the pie, and this is where the regulation plays a fundamental role. And I think in this region, for example, we are seeing already some new what they call super apps starting in Singapore, like Grab, for example, and they will be launching pretty much across all the region. So having this mentality of building the next wave of super apps is something that we are looking at basically as the new wave also of moving banking to the next level, and opening the bank through data aggregation, or opening the banks through APIs. Obviously, this gives you a different perspective.
Thank you, Pablo. One last thing before Mario. Anything you want to add before we go? Because I know we're up on time. We went 23 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of our panelists as well here. So anything that you want to add before we say goodbye to this about anything we said or the event overall?
No, on the last thing that Pablo was mentioning, I would say that one of the things that also is very important is the regulation and how central banks could control fintechs as well. So, what we see what happened with Wirecard, that was actually was serving quite a lot of different startups and fintechs and digital banks behind. So this is something that I think is a good learning for to be able to really control that more. And as Pablo was saying, also the level of customization that all these challenger banks are going, where I think we're going to see more and more banks focus on specific verticals for, I don't know, students, or for young professionals, or for taxi drivers, or for any kind of vertical markets, vertical segment. So I think that the level of specialization of the digital banks is going to go further to be able to really meet and customize services for those specific segments. No, so that's going to be the evolution, going from the generic market going into the customized services for different segments. No? So.
Great, thank you very much. Look, I could probably go on for another hour on this. This has been a very enlightening and very educational. We actually even have 8 more questions, but I think, since we ran over, I really want to thank all of our speakers today for joining, taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today to share your insights from around the world. I think this is critically important. So really, Carlos, thank you. Vikas, Ainhoa, Pablo, thank you very much for your insights today. We are recording this. We will share that with you as well. For the audience members, please feel free to reach out to them via FinTech Connector or through LinkedIn if you have any additional questions for them. But I really, again, on behalf of Demtech and on behalf of FinTech Connector, I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we could do this again. And next time we'll probably do it in Asia-friendly time, so we could get a little bit, we need to get the perspective of Asia as well. So we're looking to do another one of these with some of our Asia counterparts and compare and contrast what's going on there as well. So again, on behalf of Demtech and FinTech Connector, thank you. Until next time, have a great day, be well, and stay safe.